We have seen last time how the hexagram in astrology represents the potentiality of awakening the soul within us through the balance of the different planets in our lives. We have seen also through alchemy how we can balance the different elements to express the fifth essence, the ether. And now we will go deep into a history that comes back over days, and that is the foundation stones of the mystic, occultist, theosophical traditions of today. We have briefly mentioned how, through the link of astrology, the ancient Kabbalistic astrologers sustain that the hexagram represents the position of the planets at the moment of the birth of King David. When we speak of King David, we speak of minus 1000 years BC. So this means almost 3000 years ago, a little bit more than 3000 years ago. And why is David important? Well, David is the first king that can put together all the nomadic tribes that will form the tribes of Israel. So up to minus 1000 years BC. The people of Israel were nomadic tribes that had a very tough life, moving themselves through the lands that are now Israel and Palestine. They had a God in common, who is Jehovah. They don't say that is the source, but is one of the deities, their God. This is the God of the people of Israel. They're very clear about this. And in this way, they are polytheistic, even if they just link themselves to one God. They know the existence of many, many deities, apart from source, of course, which is one. So they're linked together through Jehovah, but they're dispersed in the territory, and this dispersion causes spread, chaos, dissemination, and weakness when they are invaded by other tribes, by the people of Babylon, Assyria, no? all the other kings that are more powerful in this moment than the tribes of Israel. So David receives the instruction of God to stand against their enemy and to magnetize the tribes of Israel and to settle in the land. But he's very young, he's not powerful. He has the inner line of blood coming from ancient kings, but he has no wealth, he has no power, he has no army. So God gives him a magic seal. So God gives him, through the hexagram, the power to dominate himself and to have mastery also through others. So the hexagram is called then the Star of David. The astrologer says it's the Star of David because this is the position of the planets where he was born. Other tradition says it's the Star of David because it's the power that got him to control over reality. In Epic tradition is called Magen David, the Star of David, and it is said that this star is anointed him as king and is represented in his armory, in his shield in battle. And with this star, he has the power to defend the people, and also to attack and fight against the powerful enemies, and they're represented by the form of a giant, and it gives him powerful attributes. And with this power, other Jewish people start to see, oh, he's the selected king of God, let's join him. So they finally settle in what is called now the territory of Jerusalem, and he starts there as king of the Jewish, his kingdom, and all the linear tradition that reaches us up to today. So this is a major shift in the Jewish line as first king of the 12 tribes of Israel. But he starts with his power given through the hexagram from the David star. He starts to be very powerful, and he sees no boundaries, he has no limits, and he starts to wish things that he shouldn't. And he desires a very young lady, but that happens to be the wife of one of his men in commandment, a very important captain, one of his hands, his right hand. And because he wants to marry her or be with her, he sends this man to battle, and he's killed. When he's killed, he can marry the widow. But Sheba does not agree with this behavior. He becomes very angry. They have a first child that, due to the anger of Sheba, dies immediately after birth. And then David understands his sins, his wrongdoings, repents, do rituals to favor Sheba, come back into line, and Sheba releases him from his sins and gives him a second son with the same woman. And this son is called Salomon. And I'm telling this story because Salomon will be very important up to now in the tradition. So Salomon grows, he's born in Jerusalem. We think that around minus 970, and he lives 60 years until minus 930. He lives in Jerusalem, because David had many wives and several concubines, there were many lines that when David becomes Saul wanted to get the power, but he's assisted by the inner chamber of King David. When he dies, Solomon is assisted by the sages of Israel to get to the power. They saw in him the potential, even if he was younger than some of his brothers from other concubines. So he inherited legally the kingdom of the 12th tribe of Israel, and he also gets the power of the hexagram. And this is when the hexagram in the tradition that was called the Star of David now is called the Seal of Salomon. It's called Katam Sulaiman, the Seal of Solomon. And this Seal of Solomon, which he inherited, he takes it to the next level, because Solomon is a very powerful magician. And he does understand, my father, King David, united the tribes of Israel. We have now a land. We have to seal this. We have to put a seal in the land so that this is really our land, not just now, but forever. So to seal this, he uses the Seal of Solomon to build a temple. And because he does this in a magical way, he has power over the elements. Remember the alchemy that we discussed. He has power over earth, so he can move blocks to help construct the temple. He has power over rain and over the weather, so he can change the weather conditions so that we have water but not floods and enough nurturing rain for the grounds, and he becomes very prosperous. He built this temple because he can also have control over fire, okay? And they say that he has very magic, he has many magical tools in his power, and he also has power over animals, and he can speak the language of animals. So animals come from different kingdoms to speak to him in his palace. So he builds a temple, he builds a palace, and he seals this alliance in the territory of Jerusalem with Jehovah. We cannot say if this is truth or not. There's several scholars saying that Salomon existed, that he didn't, that there was a temple, that there was not. What is known now is that he appears in the Old Testament, mostly under kings, Salomon. We don't know if he existed or not, but he is known today as the first builder of the first temple. There is a tradition of the place in a mount in Jerusalem where this first temple is said to be. This cannot be explored up to now because excavations have never been allowed, because this is within the Muslim territory. So this temple has never been found. But the tradition is that it was constructed by Salomon, and this tradition will impregnate all the magic activity throughout the history up to now. The Masons, the Theosophists, magical schools, everybody speaks about King Salomon, and everybody works with the magical potency of the seal that he awakened and reactivated, that is the seal of Salomon. Impossible to speak of the hexagram without entering into this tradition. We will meet again in our last to discuss again how the hexagram is active up to today. Thank you very much.